Today, PHNX Suns is breaking down the game of Nigel Hayes-Davis. And in honor of that, the entirety of this podcast will be in Turkish. Psychos and sickos unite for a Turkish Delight edition of PHNX Suns, coming to you live from Studio A, presented by nobody. But we're all here today, as always. I'm Eric Ruby. That's Stephen Bergeron Gardner. That is Gerald Bourget. We got the Juice Man, a.k.a. Ayrton, a.k.a. Old Mangled Toes. That's a new one that he got on ASU today. Behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen. But of course, the most important people, all of you in the chat here, live with us on YouTube, watching on YouTube after the fact, watching on TV, and listening on audio. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you give us a 5-star review if you're feeling so kind. Today, what up, good if it goes? Kev, Shumdog, Millionaire. We have hello, saying to answer the question, no. All right, good podcast. Short one today. We're talking about if Nigel Hayes-Davis, an MVP overseas, could be the Phoenix Suns' secret weapon. I know Steven and I talked about him a little bit earlier this week. Pretty high on him, and we've got some quotes from somebody who covers EuroLeague, some stats, some film breakdown. We got a whole packed show for everybody today, but I appreciate the Take That for Data Nerds holding it down for me yesterday and embracing the nerddom that was coming from yesterday, so I appreciate you guys, but it's good to be back. How we feeling?
Feeling great. I don't ever want to hear you complain about being bullied on this program again, the way you're flippantly throwing around nerd like you're some jock.
Being a nerd's not a bad thing. I'm a nerd.
Okay.
I'm a nerd. We're all nerds.
You don't even, we're all nerds now.
We're all nerds.
Interesting.
But you guys are the Take That for Data nerds.
That's okay, so we're just differentiating the breed of nerd.
I'm like the cool nerd.
Okay, I got you. Steven, are you buying this?
I tuned him out, honestly. So I'm not sure what he was saying. Or...
58 minutes left, so might want to tune back in for that one.
He just disassociates until it's his time. And
That's
he's
it.
like, all right, here we go.
That's it.
Sorry, Ayrton, for calling you.
Your nickname is White Noise, though, so you can only be so offended. Right?
No, it's fine. It's fine, man. Listen, he's probably doing computations and calculations in his head, trying to figure out the best way to put the number. It's nerd stuff, right? Steven, how you doing?
What's wrong with you?
A lot.
Jesus, this is what we got to do with your first day back on Thursdays.
Hey, man. I get a day off to rest. I come back firing. I don't know what to tell you.
Fantastic.
I'm going to put that out.
Can't wait for these Friday shows after he gets the next
and
Thursday off.
I still technically had to work yesterday. I produced our fantasy football show yesterday. So imagine a full day off.
Yeah, I'm going to hate next Friday's show.
No, you really have to blame is Anthony Totri.
Why?
Because he gets me riled up.
Okay, I mean,
that
that's
was
fair.
Like 3 hours ago, 2 hours ago.
Still, it gets me fired up, man. ASU's back. We're yelling about foam fingers. I don't know what you want from me.
About foam fingers?
Are we pro or anti foam fingers here?
I have no strong opinion about foam fingers. Steven, do you have
I'm definitely indifferent.
Because he was really anti foam fingers.
Why?
He's like, well, you can't use both of your hands. I'm like, well, you don't have to keep it on. Like,
it's not, you don't glue your hand.
What in the world?
For the rest of your life.
Like I mean, to be fair, I was feeding into it too, shockingly enough. But we were like yelling at each other.
Really?
When the Suns did the 4-fingered assassin ones for Gerald Green,
I brought that up.
Those were cool.
And then Totri's like, "Oh, it seems like you're making fun of somebody who's in a bad situation." I'm like, if you think I'm making fun of Gerald Green, then you don't know who you're talking to.
If you think the Suns would have approved that idea without running it by Gerald Green first, I don't know.
Correct.
We need to do a Gerald Green breakdown episode.
That'd be great.
Sound like a
next August.
Video
we'll see you here next August.
Next August when he re-signs with the team.
Oh, boy.
Okay, from former Gerald Green to modern day Gerald Green, we're talking Nigel Hayes-Davis. Steven, you had the chance to catch up with somebody who was able to break down and watch and cover Nigel's game way more close to the situation than we have been able to over here in Arizona.
Yeah, this is someone I know from Twitter that's been kind of scouting a little bit for players overseas, just kind of keeping tabs on different players that have come and gone over the last handful of years. And his name is Can, like pronounced and spelled like Can. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he does a good job just kind of explaining and kind of familiarizing people with players that they might not have a chance to see live or at all at times, just because of the accessibility or lack thereof of EuroLeague games to be able to go back and watch if you're not able to catch it live via a stream of some capacity. So he's going to help to set the tone for a lot of what we'll be looking at in today's assessing of what Nigel Hayes-Davis is bringing to the Suns, what he is as an individual player, and what his prospects suggest he could potentially do in his first season back in the NBA.
Well, I like reading through all of these, just gets me more and more hyped up. Steven, you asked him just point blank, what was his favorite part of his game? And right off the bat, I was like, alignment. I saw alignment with this quote.
Yeah, Khan mentioned that he loves Nigel Hayes-Davis' work ethic and mentality. Before joining Fenerbahce, he had the worst season of his career. Only made 11 threes the whole season, and he was seen as more of a role player than when he first arrived. But each season with Fenerbahce, he grew both as a player and as a leader. He eventually took over the team's leadership role, broke the EuroLeague single game scoring record with 50 points, and tied the record with 10 threes in that game, and recently led Fenerbahce Beko through a treble-winning season. So this is one where they were able to just win at the highest level. And again, we always talk about players having that it factor and players understanding how to wear those qualities in a way that is not just going to help themselves, but also put their team in position to be its best version of itself based off of style of play and matchups and all of those things. He's very much a player that is obviously not going to be the best on a team stateside, but when you have someone that's been the man before and that has had to deal with those demands on a daily basis, it takes on a different form when they're able to condense that to a role and then still have those leadership qualities to pass on and exude at practice and training camp and things like that.
Yeah, it's great insight. And if you're a Suns fan, it makes you feel better about adding a guy to a younger team. Yes, he's on a vet minimum guy. Yes, obviously the EuroLeague to NBA transition doesn't always go well for guys, but he has spent the majority of his career steadily getting better and better overseas. And the fact that he was able to couple that with taking on a leadership role for a team that was very successful in EuroLeague is encouraging to me, because we've talked a lot about Dillon Brooks bringing the alpha mentality and the leadership. We've talked about Devin Booker needing to take a step up in that regard. Outside of those two guys, it's a relatively young team. So even if he's a guy that's coming off the bench, he's a guy that's been around and played overseas, seen a lot of different basketball playing styles, a lot of different opponents. And so I think he will be able to help a younger team if he's comfortable taking on that kind of leadership role that he did with Fenerbahce here in Phoenix.
And I feel like he wouldn't be here if he wasn't willing to buy into that role. Because if you hear from Brian Gregory and why I said like a Lyman or Matt Ishbia about why they want certain players to be here, they want them to work that hard. And there's a certain fire, a certain hunger for a guy that has to taste the NBA, which Nigel Hayes-Davis did in 2018 after playing at Wisconsin with Frank Kaminsky, friend of the program. Then he can't cut it in the NBA. He goes overseas and he works his way up. Right? Like it was not just like, hey, I go overseas and I'm a star. I'm going to be a star for a bunch of years. Then I'm going to come back over stateside. It was, okay, I really had to find my own game. And now when he's here, we talk about Colin Gillespie when we did the breakdown last Friday, Steven. And it was like, this is somebody who has a pedigree, but who's had to progressively show more and more and more and dominate at a lower level in the G League and then get a taste of the NBA and prove it from there. Like this is somebody who's trying to prove that he belongs in the NBA, let alone in a rotation, in a lineup, whatever it might be. So I'm really excited to see every time he touches the floor exactly how that energy can play off of some of these other young guys with high amounts of energy, like a Ryan Dunn or an Osu Ighodaro, or if he plays with the starters like Devin Booker and Dillon Brooks, how that might cascade into some positive movement for the team.
Yeah, I think that's going to be something that helps him integrate himself into what's essentially a new league since the last time he was around in it. The game has evolved. The ways that teams use players and just the general flow of the game is completely different now. I feel like he's better suited for the way that the game is now versus when it was when he had his last opportunity over here on stateside. So I'm going to be looking forward to seeing how he carves out a role and really raises the bar of competition based off of all of these different experiences that Ken just mentioned to us and that we've kind of been speaking through as well.
And I like that in the latter part of that quote that we had flashed earlier, it mentioned that he records every negative comment about him and uses it as motivation. So, Eric, don't take that as a challenge. Yes.
Do we love that? Every comment?
I mean,
listen, as somebody who gets a lot of negative comments, if I recorded every single one, I'd probably drive myself insane.
I mean, you're going to wind up on his whiteboard.
What do you mean?
You already there based off of the episode we had earlier.
Bro, what do you mean? I've not been mean to him.
Nope.
You guys are bullying me.
No one's saying you're being mean to him.
Said, I'm not sure if he's going to crack the main rotation. And Nigel said, bet.
I hope he does.
Bulletin board.
You know what, man? I got to do my part. I got to play my role.
I knew you would. See, that's why I said challenge accepted.
If it's annoying podcaster, that's it.
I knew he was going to take it personal.
Listen, man. If it, I'll tell you this though. But if it takes an annoying podcaster to get you to like play with that fire, then maybe I should be saying negative things. I don't think that's the case with Nigel Hayes-Davis. I think Nigel Hayes-Davis just wants to get better. I mean, you talked to Frank Kaminsky, Gerald, when the Suns first signed him. And he's talking about how he's one of the hardest workers out there. And I think that based off of what we heard from Can and some more quotes that we'll share with you later today, you know, this is somebody who attacks every single day. I also like the classical music part of that quote as well. That's the type of stuff that I love. Like warming up to classical music is so badass.
That's like borderline like psychopathic tendencies. Like,
that's what I like.
Norman Bates type basketball stuff.
I genuinely, he's akin to the Jimmy Butler cloth of guys in multiple respects. And I say that with reverence to Jimmy Butler because he doesn't do things the typical way. He doesn't live life the typical way. And Nigel's very much cut from that cloth of guys, and you can't have enough of those type of guys in your locker room.
Yeah, and Steven, you had mentioned that Nigel Hayes-Davis has progressively got better. In fact, he just had his best season ever overseas before signing with the Suns on a veteran deal. What did Can have to say about what stood out to him from his best season over in EuroLeague action?
Well, I'm trying to see where is. Okay, yeah. So he said he was speaking to his leadership, and he said his leadership stood out most, saying that Hayes-Davis already had a great season the year before last, and in his opinion, he was capable of making the jump to the NBA then as well. But he stayed and ultimately helped Fenerbahce win the championship. His effectiveness on both ends of the floor and willingness to step up in clutch moments were the qualities that stood out most to him as NBA ready. And I think we've kind of talked to a little bit of that as is in the initial part of our conversation. But again, when you're not just a guy that can do those things, but now your team is depending on you and really demanding for you to do that because they don't have someone else that either does it as well to a specific matchup or just generally isn't better, that comes with accountability. That comes with urgency. It comes with responsibility. And again, when you can condense those top tier type of expectations into a role that's not that allows for you to make things a little bit easier for the other players on the court because you've been there and you've seen that.
Yeah, and if you are one of those people that takes EuroLeague stats or performance with a grain of salt, you shouldn't be. But if you are, the fact that he was able to pop and put up the stats that he did and, like Can was saying, rise in those moments where they needed someone to be clutch, they needed someone to take over, they needed someone to make a hustle play on either end of the floor, that bodes well for transitioning to the NBA because you like to see when NBA players go play overseas or, you know, international play, you like to see them just absolutely ball out. And that's what Nigel Hayes-Davis has been doing. So hopefully that reverse transition coming back to the NBA will bode well based on what he's been able to show against EuroLeague competition.
Well, and the clutch thing is something that on any level, like if you're just playing pickup hoops, like there are certain players that hit the clutch shots and there are certain players that don't. And I think for a guy who's trying to earn his spot in the NBA, and if you go watch, like go throw on Nigel Hayes-Davis highlights, like there's plenty of like 10 to 15 minute highlight clips. Like again, he's not been playing in a dungeon somewhere in like, you know, the middle of Antarctica where nobody knows what's been going on. Like you watch any of his highlights, you're going to start start off with buzzer beaters, especially like in big games, big shots, like walk-offs. Like he's been the guy where in the moment he's risen to the occasion. Now, is he going to be the guy getting the ball if the Suns are down 1 with 5 seconds left? No, like he's not going to get that. But that mentality can then be transferred over if, let's say, okay, we're going to start you off, Nigel Hayes-Davis. You're going to get 5 minutes, right? 5 minutes in the rotation at the start of the season. He knows that he's going to have to make those 5 minutes count. Mm-hmm. And there's a certain amount of pressure that comes with trying to earn your spot and say, hey, I might get 1 shot. Mm-hmm. I might get 2 shots. I need to make those shots count. Hopefully that can translate into, all right, when I get this amount of playing time, Steven, even if it starts on the smaller end, I have this mental fortitude to know that I'm still going to bring the results that are needed.
Yeah, for sure. And I think because of the role that he's going to be in, you can't have enough guys that are, first of all, willing to play a role that's adaptable on a per-game basis, but also players that aren't scared to take certain types of shots. You're going to have people in certain roles, but obviously, as we saw in the playoffs with both teams that made it to the finals, you have to have role players that can do things outside of their deemed role. I think Andrew Nembhard is probably the best example of that. Was a role player the entire season and then turns into one of the best big shot takers and makers across multiple moments of the playoff stretch going through the finals, including game 1, where he's taking and making game winners essentially over the MVP. Like, I'm not saying Nigel has that to that extent, but he has certain bits of that in multiple respects of his game where he can operate as proverbially the man off script in a way that's not specific to his role.
Yeah, and even if he's not, knocking down game winners or even on the floor for tight games with the Suns, he's a guy that fits the type of role player that they were looking for in terms of has good size at 6'8", athletic, and plays with a great motor and a good locker room guy. Those are all qualities that they're looking for if they want to build this gritty, defensive-minded team. And Hayes checks a lot of those boxes. So he's, I think some people are thinking he's going to be a secret weapon, and we're going to talk about where we see him fitting in on the Suns later in the show. But even if he's not that, if he's just a solid role player who checks some of those boxes, then I think this is a great signing, even if he doesn't become the Gershon Yabusele signing of the offseason.
If he was, that would be great. But I think for baseline on this team, and we saw with Kaman Malawach in Summer League, it's talking, it's communication, it's a good, nice personality that fits in with what this team is trying to do. Steven, you asked about Nigel Hayes-Davis' personality, and it's like, wow, I wonder why the Suns really went for this guy. It's not that much of a surprise.
Yeah, kind of like this one as well. I think it's maybe one of the more important quotes of the ones we'll be looking at. He mentioned Nigel Hayes-Davis is a leader on the court. He constantly communicates with his teammates both on defense and offense. Even if he has a rough night offensively, he's gonna give you everything he has on the defensive end. He's the type of player who might struggle in the first half, but then come out and drop 20 points in the second half. He truly has a strong mentality, just like his idol, Kobe Bryant.
Got to have that strong mentality, especially if you're going to earn it back up in the NBA. And I think, with this term that I've coined so often, which is iron sharpens iron, when it goes into practice, right? When you have somebody who's going to be bringing it to you every single step of the way, and somebody who's going to be talking on offense and on defense, who's still going to give it all, even if he's struggling or whatever it might be, like that's going to rub off on a guy like Ryan Dunn, who is more likely than not going to have some rough shooting halves, right? And if you can learn from a guy like Dylan Brooks, who has learned how to, be a better shooter. When he came in the league, he was not nearly as good as he is now, or Nigel Hayes-Davis or Devin Booker, whoever it is, like you can learn from all these guys on the team, Gerald. So like you said, it might not just be, hey, Nigel Hayes-Davis is averaging 12 points per game. It might be in practice, Ryan Dunn is taking a lot from Nigel Hayes-Davis, and that's translating on the court for when Ryan Dunn starts for this team.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to have guys in the building to practice with that go just as hard or can set the tone in that way. And it could help with his playing time too, because that ability to bounce back from a bad half and have a good half in the second half, like he mentioned, his playing time might be sparse to start the season, or he might have to work his way into the rotation where he gets, 3, 4, 5 minute stints. He's going to have to make the most of those. So it could be a situation where he doesn't play the first half. Jordan Ott goes a different direction the second half. If he can, bring that ability to bounce back from a bad first half to a situation where maybe he doesn't even play the first half, then you're looking at a player who can come in and be impactful no matter what kind of minutes he's being allotted until he can hopefully carve out a more consistent role.
Go ahead.
Yeah, mental stamina is probably one of the more underrated dynamics of being a role player. You have to be okay with making mistakes, but also understand that there are other ways to impact the game past just whatever your strong suit is. And I think as a role player, again, if you're going from someone that has recently won multiple championships as one of, if not the best player on a team, and you drop down and roll, having that experience just really proves invaluable when you kind of condense it and you put it in a box in a sense.
Yeah, and we can talk about intangibles all day, but what about statistically? What did Nigel Hayes-Davis do over his EuroLeague career and in his career best season at Fenerbahce? Last year, we'll have that. We'll have more quotes from Can. We'll be talking about what offensively and defensively he can carry over from the EuroLeague to the NBA, and where exactly does he fit in the Phoenix Suns rotation? Can he be 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th man? Can he eventually earn that starting power forward spot? We're going to break it all down, all after our first break. A big sports weekend, especially when it comes to college football. So if you're looking for something to help you enjoy the weekend while you're sitting your ass on the couch, I highly recommend Pure Edibles. Pure Edibles are not like their competitors for a variety of reasons. One of them being that they taste good without being completely coated in sugar like all of these other gummies. Plus, they have so many different types. They have hard gummies, soft gummies, they have Kicks, which is their version of Starburst, which are absolutely delicious. And you know exactly how those delicious gummies are going to make you feel, because it's all listed clearly on the tin. Plus, they're easy to be ripped or bit in half, making them easily shareable or easy to dial in your exact dose. There are no surprises when it comes to Pure Edibles, and for those of you who have had bad experience with other edibles in the past, you know that when something unexpected happens, it is not fun. You're not getting that with Pure Edibles. Go find yourself some Pure Edibles products from one of the over 130 dispensaries across Arizona. And before you indulge in your Pure Edibles, get your snacks from Circle K. I've stopped at Circle K like 5 times already this week, whether it was to get some of my favorite electrolyte drinks to warm up before and after our men's league game that we are 2-0, by the way, for everybody who wanted to know. I know everybody did. I also filled up on gas last night. In fact, I got the 4 times save 25 cents off per gallon deal, which you could do if you were part of the Inner Circle. And it's easy to be a member of the Inner Circle. All you have to do is download the Circle K app, put in your phone number, put in your email, and you're automatically saving money. They got meal deals, $3, $4, $5. They have just about everything you could possibly imagine at Circle K. Plus, there's one everywhere. Literally look to your left, look to your right, go down a block. There's probably a Circle K there. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for more details. Shout out Boom Shakalaka, Kev, Sean, Diego. We got the On Society in chat. Great name. Says, I hated how Gerald Green would step out of bounds at least once a game when he would try to drive. You leave him alone.
I mean, there's a lot of players in recent memory that did that for the Suns.
That is true. That is very true.
Mikal and Cam Johnson were the main culprits in recent memory that they did that.
Campaign did that a lot.
The
Too.
campaign was very much there too.
Anytime he caught it on the baseline, it was a risk.
You leave him alone. Odd Society.
Honestly, though, like, I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often with the very narrow amount of space you have between the sideline and the 3-point line. Like,
Yeah.
I know corner threes are closer, so you have to make it tougher somehow, but like they barely have enough room to actually plant their feet between those two.
Well, that might be where Nigel Hayes-Davis is making his mark and settling in on this offense. Let's go ahead and just take a look at some of his stats over his career in the EuroLeague. In 213 games, he averaged 10.4 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, 1.3 assists, just under a steal per game at 0.9, shooting 39.2% from deep and 50.4% from two-point land. That's a long time, 213 games. And Steven, for those who don't watch a lot of overseas basketball, EuroLeague basketball, can you explain why averaging 10 points per game over 200 games is actually a pretty impressive feat from any player?
Yeah, it's impressive because of how often they move the ball. Unless there's a team that has a Luka or a Jokic that comes over from obviously stateside, or even like a Giannis that comes over stateside and goes and plays for their native teams. Teams are usually moving the ball more than they play isolation. Isolation is typically reserved for end of the shot clock, end of the quarter situations. And even then, if it's like 10, they'll get a pass or a dribble handoff into a pass before getting into isolation. There's a whole lot less of those kind of laggish moments that we see in the NBA side where the ball is just sitting there and you can kind of look at your phone or you can go talk to somebody for 10 seconds and there'll still be 6 before somebody actually goes into an attacking type of move. So it's different. It's weighed on a different scale in terms of scoring in the EuroBasket circuit in general. But the other big thing with it too, roles. Roles are so significantly different over there because of the way that the ball moves. It puts people in different positions.
Gerald, when we're watching overseas basketball, I think a lot of people be like, oh, well, the competition level, right? It's not the NBA. Who really cares? This is tough basketball. In fact, you have some players that come from overseas and say it's a lot harder to score over there with the way that the defensive rules are even set up that it is when you come to the NBA and you have more space and more shooting and more officiating that favors the offensive player.
Yeah, I do think the officiating, to your point, I think the spacing, I think the athleticism is a little different. The playing style, the way that teams play overseas is a little bit different. So it is harder to put up bigger numbers. So 10 points per game in EuroLeague over that long of a stretch is kind of closer to maybe 13, 14, 15, depending on the team context and all that stuff. So those are very good numbers. I like the efficiency. And I think when you're looking at, EuroLeague isn't as good as the NBA. The NBA is the 99.9, like it's the cream of the absolute crop in terms of what you're looking at. There are guys that are absolute stars over in EuroLeague that can't make it in the NBA because of how good it is. But that doesn't mean it's worth writing off completely. And there are skills that are translatable from Nigel's game in an NBA context, especially in a role that he'll be in. Because over there, he was an MVP. He was a EuroLeague all-first teamer the last 2 years. He was asked to be one of the best players on his team, and he was. In Phoenix, it'll be a little bit different, but that doesn't mean that the skills that he showed over there will not translate to a different role here.
Well, and before we get to those individual skills, you say the cream of the crop. Usually the guys who do translate over to the NBA are the ones that are at the very top overseas. Let's take a look at his stats from last season. Definitely a big increase in the points per game category. That's 16.7 points per game for Fenerbahce, 5.3 rebounds per game, 1.7 assists per game, 1.1 steals per game on 41% shooting from deep and 49.8% shooting from two-point land. Basically, every single stat goes up except for his two-point percentage, which slightly goes down, but on higher volume. Steven, when you look at his offensive game specifically, overseas, it was a lot of post-ups, right? That was where he got a lot of his offense from. Where do you see his most translatable skill being over in the NBA? Is it those post-ups?
On the offensive side?
On the offensive side.
It's definitely the post-ups. One way to beat switches is put smaller guys in compromise. It's not always about scoring against the mismatch. Oftentimes, and especially what's understood on the Euro basketball stage, is taking a mismatch for what it is. You can make a mismatch, make decisions as a help defender. That's oftentimes the best way to manipulate somebody that's not a good defender. But stateside, they like to go directly at it, which bleeds away the clock. But oftentimes that results in a low-quality shot that's taken. Now, tough shot makers can make those, but how sustainable is that often? And you see a lot of players getting the ruts because of that. But on the EuroBasket stage, which aligns with Nigel, posting up smaller defenders, if you're putting them directly in action, is going to garner an extra body. If you're garnering an extra body, even if they just half commit to a double and don't fully blitz the ball, making one pass out of that, and if it's the right pass with the right timing, puts the defense in rotation. That's what you want from any action. Create an advantage, create a rotation. You create a rotation. Now they're at your will. Now you're dictating terms. You get whatever shot you want or get to the free throw line. And I think he understands that. He's a very good passer out of the post, which we'll get to a little bit later. But generally speaking, understanding what a mismatch is, how to manipulate it, and ultimately how to put your teammates in the best position. You can do that from post-ups.
Yeah, and I think establishing that he is a threat as a post-up in the NBA is important for him off the bat, because you look at, according to Synergy, he shot 51% in the post last season, which is really good. And the caliber of defender in the NBA, the size, the strength, the athleticism is going to be a little bit different. So I think it's important for the Suns that when he does get minutes, you establish on that scouting report that he is a guy that is going to take advantage of mismatches in the post, that you will require a second defender over so that you can capitalize on, like you said, Stephen, his passing ability out of those situations. Because the worst thing would be for him to come into the league, not get those post-ups, or those post-ups go inefficiently, and suddenly that kind of advantage that he can create is taken away. But the fact that he was efficient on that, and that he does have a pretty good basketball IQ of making the right read out of those situations, bodes well for a team that, like we said, a lot of the times is going to be sending two to Devin Booker every single time. So when Book's not on the floor, having another guy that can create those similar situations in a different context is important.
Yeah, BS Murray asks, what's his basketball IQ? I mean, you look at the assists per game. The assists per game is not a crazy number, but when you look at some of the reads that he was making, he's very strong at passing out of double teams, very strong at finding somebody who's in the dunker spot or somebody off of a cut as well. You don't get the vibe of somebody who's just a complete ball hog who doesn't know when to pass, but he was the best offensive option last year, so he wasn't getting a ton of assists. The post-ups are important for sure. I do think, though, especially at the start of his NBA career, what's going to make or break if he gets minutes, it's going to be that three ball. And I mean, he shot 41% on over 5 3-pointer attempts per game in this past season. And I think that the three ball is going to have to come first before the post-ups, just in the modern NBA if you're a role player. And we'll talk about the defense here in a second, but you got to play defense. You got to be athletic, and you got to have some semblance of a three-point shot if you're not going to be a star. And I think in order to get the nod from Jordan Knott and to earn the ability to get the ball either in the post to attack a mismatch, or if they're going to try to drop some sort of play for him off the bench, he's got to be able to at least hit some threes and keep some people honest, right? So does the three ball translate, to me, is probably the biggest make or break besides some of the defensive tools and qualities that we'll talk about today, as to can he be a mainstay in the rotation? Can he be a fun bench mob guy who's break in case of emergency off of the post-ups and the physicality? For sure. But if he wants to be one of the top 11 guys on this team that's getting consistent rotation minutes, he needs to hit threes at a pretty decent rate on a pretty decent volume. But with the post-ups, you say like they're a bigger size in the NBA. Just to give people an idea of his size, he is 6'8" with a 7'3" wingspan, and that wingspan shows on both sides of the ball. He's 250 pounds as well. So this is somebody who can get physical. His body type will translate into the NBA. I think his post-ups could translate if he gets kind of the leeway, Steven, to work into that. But I think that three-point shot is really going to be make or break for whether he sticks around.
I don't want to put too much pressure on the three ball falling for him. It's definitely important for sure. Like, don't get me wrong on that part, but I think he has other ways that can help to carve out a niche for himself past just, okay, I can shoot, so I should be garnering X amount of minutes. I think it's the totality of his game that should be what ultimately is going to kind of garner that from him. But the three-point shooting is very important, though. I think he's been better from the corners or the low wing than he is once you get closer to the slot or to the top of the key in particular. But the catch and shoot part is going to be something to work with, because he has been comfortable working off the dribble and kind of creating for himself there.
I think the off the dribble part is also important, Gerald, because last season, what was one of the main things on offense that we were begging for from this team?
Yeah, more creation off the dribble,
and more rim pressure, right? And that was one of the things I saw in Nigel's tape, is that he puts pressure on the rim. He is going to attack the paint, and that is going to be fun with some of the shooters that this team does have if he can get into his bag and get to the rim.
Yeah, well, I mean, before we get to that, going back to the three-point thing, he shot 38% on catch and shoot threes last year, 37% on 78 off the dribble threes, which is pretty good. I don't think he's going to be taking a ton of those in a Suns context, but just having another pick and pop big option is a good thing. But to your point, if he can put pressure on the rim, obviously rim pressure for this team is going to be huge no matter where they can get it from. You're looking more so at like Jalen Green, Devin Booker, the starters to provide it. But when those subs start to trickle in, having a guy, I think he shot 61% at the rim last year, having a guy who can create some of his own offense off the bounce would be a huge asset to have, especially if you couple that with efficient three-point shooting, because now you're looking at a guy who you have to close out on in pick and pop situations. And if he can attack those closeouts, even better. It all starts to kind of come together, and you put defenses in positions where they have to rotate. And when you get a defense in rotation, that's usually when you get the most amount of open threes or driving lanes.
I think to kind of put a bow on his offensive game before we jump over to defense, some more quotes, and then where he might figure into this rotation. Free throw percentage this past season, shot 90.8% on 142 attempts. It's 129 of 142 from the line. That's going to be key for him as well. and his offensive rebounding. So total rebounds, 5.3 rebounds per game. That was Fenerbahce's leading rebounder, by the way, was Nigel Hayes-Davis. 1.4 of those 5.3 were offensive. So over one offensive board a game, Steven, that's something that the philosophy of the Suns has been said. They're like, hey, we are going to be a team that's crashing the board and creating extra opportunities. That is another easy way for him to earn minutes on this team.
Yep, and that's why I don't want to diminish it to the three-pointer making or breaking it, because he has so many other ways he can impact the game. If you're not knocking down your threes at, like, let's say 35, 36 or a higher percent, but you're grabbing 30 to 40% of the offensive rebounds available for your team at any given moment, that's enough value that's going to give extra possessions. And those extra possessions are what really win a game. You can really shift the momentum of a game either more in your favor or less in favor of an opponent by kind of shrinking those margins, getting those unscripted points. And he's a player that wears those qualities as naturally as he walks, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on his offensive game before we move on to the defensive side of things?
I think he will be able to impact the game. I do think the three ball is critical, especially on this team where we've talked about there's so many question marks with the 3-point shooting, and especially at that 4 spot where there is so much competition. He will have to differentiate himself. I know that the post-up component is one way. The hustle plays is potentially another. And just having someone with a little bit more experience is yet another. But I do think if he can't hit, he did hit threes. We showed the stats from his entire EuroLeague career. He's been at 39% over that entire span. So I don't think that'll be a problem. The question is whether it will hold up to the degree that really kind of differentiates himself from Ryan Dunn, Rasheer Fleming, a lot of the other guys that are going to be competing for minutes at those 3 and 4 spots.
Yeah, and he does fill a role that the Suns might need offensively at that 4.
He does, but I think what separates him is he's more polished than all of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And with being more polished, he's going to be more kind of composed, if you will. Mm-hmm. Things won't feel like they're too big for the moment for him. He'll be very much himself and what you expect for him to bring on the offensive end. And to that point, there's a significant value to screens being set. Screens, understanding the angles versus what coverage is being given to your opponent or from your opponents. Understanding relative to that what type of screens you should be setting for what type of player you're screening for. He has that IQ in particular. And I know we had a question about IQ. Some of the best IQ shows up in how people set screens. What angle are you using? How long are you holding before getting into the release? Are you ghosting it and popping based off of what the coverage is? Collecting that data over the course of the flow of the game and being able to apply it in real time to create advantages. I think he might be the best advantage creating big outside of Oso Ighodaro from that front court group at this present moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be exciting to see him when we actually get to see him in game action, but it might not be the offense that earns him his role in the Suns. It could be the defensive end. We have more quotes from Can. We have more breakdown of his game. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. PHNX Suns is going to keep it rolling right after our final break. October 31st through November 2nd. That is NASCAR Championship weekend at nowhere else but Phoenix Raceway. Not only is just going to Phoenix Raceway enough to get you there because it's beautiful, it's in the side of a mountain, it's in basically like the middle of nowhere, so it's just the main attraction. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, but also it's what's going on inside. I'm talking cars roaring by at almost 200 miles per hour, witnessing 4 champions crowned in just 3 days. Can I get one of my nerds to tell me is 4 more than 3?
It is.
I don't know. You tell me.
That's why I'm asking you guys. I don't know. But listen, Phoenix Raceway is the best place to be a sports fan. It's electric, and with small ticket upgrades, you're in the Desert Diamond Casino infield experience, up close to the garage, meeting the drivers, walking the track, catching the pre-race concert. But of course, the coup de grace is the racing. So don't miss your chance to witness NASCAR Championship weekend in person, October 31st and November 2nd at Phoenix Raceway. And tickets for Sunday's Cup Series Championship race sell out every year. So move fast to get yours now before they're gone. And here's the kicker: NASCAR's taking championship weekend on the road starting in 2026. So this is your last chance to catch it here in the Valley for a while. Tickets, hospitality upgrades are all still available. Get yours now at the link in our show notes. And listen, APS just wants to save you money and make your life easier. They don't have to do that. You've got to use APS most places that you are. They don't have to give you a smart thermostat for as low as $0 when you're enrolled in the APS Cool Rewards program. They don't have to tell you that for every 1 degree you raise your thermostat, you could lower your energy costs by 2 to 3%. They don't have to give you the time of use plan to take advantage of lower cost off-peak hours. But the thing about APS is that they legitimately care. We've talked to people from APS, and they want to help out this community. They want to help out Arizona, and that's what you can do by getting yourself a smart thermostat. I use my smart thermostat all the time, either out of necessity or out of me being lazy. Either way, I'm using it to adjust my temperature in my home and saving myself some money. And you might be eligible for a smart thermostat for as low as $0 when you enroll in the APS Cool Rewards program. If you already have a smart thermostat at home like myself, see if it's eligible to enroll in Cool Rewards, plus free installs available at the link in our video description. Must be an APS customer, pay shipping and taxes, and other restrictions apply. Go to marketplace.aps.com for more information. Also want to let everybody know, we had the PHNX Cardinals residency last night at Gila. It was a wonderful event. Archer made an appearance, which was bringing the house down per usual. Cardinals guys aren't done. Live show at Rally House, September 2nd, on location in Glendale, right next to State Farm Stadium. This is going to be electric. Not only is Rally House electric, and we'll be giving away some free stuff there, but of course, Bo and Johnny in the middle of the Cardinals season. Listen, the Cardinals guys are rocking. The Cardinals are a fun, young, energetic team. So be there and become a diehard today for just $36.
That was the 12th, right?
The 12th.
Okay, you said the 2nd.
Oh, sorry. The 12th. My
September
bad.
12th.
I'm too excited.
Make it 10 days earlier.
Kurt Warner coming on there, so no.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
What the hell?
That is
When
fantastic.
are we getting Steve Nash on this
crazy.
program? Gerald, get on that.
I don't make these decisions.
Get on that, Gerald. Get us Steve. Maybe he'll see the all-time draft or the 8-man rotation draft, said, you know, I was going to go on PHNX Suns, but you guys drafted me 6th. Okay, let's talk about defense, because defense wins championships, but does it get Nigel Hayes-Davis in the Suns rotation? Steven, defense is something you talked about with Can.
I did, and we can go ahead and get that graphic up now, Ayrton. Cam mentioned defensively, he can guard both the 3 and the 4 positions very well. In Europe, there was even stretches where he played small ball 5, though it's harder to imagine that in the NBA. He's a high IQ defender. He also has a 7'3" wingspan, as Eric mentioned, both of those things, and very strong defensive instincts, and that part is important. I believe defense will be the key factor that helps him expand his role in the NBA this season. And I tend to agree with all of that. I think that's where he's going to carve out his niche first. His versatility and the ability to have discernment with his versatility and always be available by not fouling is going to be very important, because if you want to play an active defense, if you want to play a versatile defense, it's only as good as your ability to do so without fouling. I don't think he had any issues from what I saw game-wise, or even more so looking at the box score and seeing how many fouls he compiled over the course of games. And it wasn't for him not guarding pieces that were often featured as one or number 2 options in teams' offenses.
Last season, 2.1 fouls per game. So
And
not
included
bad.
in a lot of action, especially given he was switching and doing a lot of guarding of guards in space. So
No, that's great. And I agree he's going to have to establish himself defensively, especially because a lot of the guys that he's going to be competing with for minutes are defensive-minded guys, especially since the Suns have spent all summer talking about how they want to be a defensive-minded, gritty team. Based on what we have seen, obviously he produced for Fenerbahce a lot on the offensive end, but defensively making a lot of the hustle plays. You go through some of their highlights from their biggest games, and you see him diving out of bounds, saving the ball, making plays like that are going to ingratiate himself to Jordan Ott and the fan base as well. So hopefully he is able to carry a lot of that over here in Phoenix, because you need as much size and defense and versatility on that end as you can get in the NBA nowadays. So if that translates over, then I think he's got a better shot at earning minutes. Because right now, we'll be honest, we've seen people saying you guys are too high on him, you're too low on him. I personally don't know where I am on him, because I have no idea how those minutes are going to shake out at the 3 and the 4. There's so much competition there. But in order for him to reach his ceiling and carve out a niche for himself, it does start on the defensive end and being able to prove that a lot of that stuff we saw in EuroLeague translates to the NBA as well.
Where do we see his best defensive role? Is it as a point of attack guy, help defender? What do you see, Steven, him fitting into a defensive scheme the best?
Through and through, he's a switch big. And that's probably going to be his primary coverage anytime he's involved in direct action. Because he defends guards so well, because he can guard 1 through 4, I believe, coming into the NBA off of switches, I think that naturally allows for some scheme versatility in the different lineups that Jordan Knott is going to be using. And I talked about him unlocking lineups for Jordan Knott. This is one example of it. If you can add a different tempo to the defense because of the activity that you're able to play with, and that's the level of activity that raises the level of everybody else on the floor with you, create more opportunities for those unscripted points. Now you're, again, carving out a niche. We're talking about the pieces, piece by piece by piece, that allows him to streamline some success.
And Gerald, the wingspan, I know it's like people are like, oh, the wingspan. That matters, right? And some of these blocks that Nigel was able to pull off, like there were some great recovery blocks where he showed his instincts, but you could have instincts in a 6'11 wingspan and you're not going to get half of the blocks that Nigel was able to get with his 7'3 wingspan.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a difference. You look at the defenses of the last couple of years that the Suns have had, especially last year, terrible defense. Mm-hmm. Yes, they had some length, but this team is a different level of both athleticism, size, wingspan, all of that good stuff. So hopefully he is able to bring that over here because, like, obviously the wingspan comes with him, but that athleticism, the chase down blocks, like you mentioned, being able to switch on the perimeter and hold his own for even if it's just a few seconds here and there. It's not like a lot of people, when they hear you got to switch on the perimeter, they think they're guarding a whole possession out there. Usually it's like 4 to 7 seconds at most that you have to hold up. And for a lot of guys, that is too much to ask. But if Nigel is that right combination of athleticism and length and foot speed that he can contain on the perimeter, suddenly that gives you another weapon in Jordan Knott's scheme, more switchability, because we know that Ryan Dunn can do that. We're hoping that Rasheer from year one can do that. Suddenly you're looking at wing-heavy lineups that the Suns just really haven't had in years past.
Yeah, and none of that matters if you're not smart. And Ken saying the defensive IQ is incredible. And then even earlier, Ken talking about the fact that he's always talking on defense. Right. And if you're communicating, if you know where you're supposed to be, you've got the actual archetype of a good defender as far as weight. 250 is not light. Right. You talk about having to guard some bigger guys in the NBA. I don't think he'll be at the 5, but with a 7'3 wingspan and 250 pounds, if because it's a fast break or there's a switch or whatever it is, he is guarding a big, especially in the modern NBA where some of these bigs aren't all like Nikola Jokic, who are 300 plus pounds at 7 feet tall. Like he could be able to hold his own and possibly get a stop there. Like there's versatility in there and there's high IQ in there. And that's all you can ask for a guy that realistically is going to be not one of the first guys off of your bench, but I look at a guy like Josh Okogie, right, who just has this incredible motor. I would not say that Nigel Hayes-Davis is the same type of defender that Josh Okogie is. I think they fit into different roles. But that's somebody that where, like, Josh Okogie was not always the first guy off the bench. He was not always off the bench, right? Sometimes he was staying there. But when he came in the game, the IQ, the grit, the energy, and of course for him as well, like the athleticism and his body type, like made a big impact every time he was on the court. If Nigel can slot into that, then it's already a net positive because it's not like you've signed this guy to a max contract, right? You're not looking for him to be a starter. You're not looking for him to be like the guy. You just need him to be a piece, at least to start off with.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dagoon in the chat brought this up. KD gave Nigel props. So there's that. I have the direct quote here because Nigel Hayes was on the Team USA Select team. So he got to see him up close. And he said he has the talent to be in the NBA. Hopefully he gets his opportunity, but he just loves to play regardless. Hopefully he's in the league soon. And wouldn't you know it, about
now he's KD's replacement.
About a year later. Well, yeah. I'm not going to pin that label on him, but yes, he is now here in Phoenix about a year later. So kind of cool that things come full circle. And say what you will about Kevin Durant and his son's tenure, but the man knows hoops. He knows hoopers. So the fact that he was saying that about Nigel Hayes-Davis is encouraging to me for sure.
It is. People that just simply love the game, they typically approach it differently. They typically play with a certain type of urgency, and that's something that always helps, especially a role player, again, to find a way to streamline some success relative to the things that they're being demanded with from their coaching staff. Give them a task, they're able to execute that task. I call them time-on taskers for that. And he's probably going to be one of the guys that executes upon that as well as anybody else in the rotation.
So we've talked mindset, we've talked offense, we've talked defense. So let's talk role. Let's talk about this upcoming season. Before we give our opinions on where we think, again, this is all conjecture. It's August. We're not giving you like, hey, this is what's going to happen, but just what we think. What does Can think is the most translatable skills and role for Nigel in the NBA, Steven?
Yeah, he thinks he can be successful in this season in the NBA as a 3-and-D player in particular. He definitely has more potential than just that, which we've spoken to. But in terms of the roles he's likely to have with the Phoenix Suns and the skills that will carry over to the NBA, his three-point shooting and defensive impact stand out the most to me.
Okay, that's good because those are the two things that the Suns need from him for him to make a stamp in the rotation or earn minutes at all, to be honest with you. So, again, we've said this many times. I've said this a couple times in the last week when we've talked about Nigel. My expectations for vet minimum guys are always going to be tempered, especially after what we've seen the last couple of seasons. But if the three-point shooting translates, if he is able to prove himself defensively and carry over a lot of the motor and the hustle plays that he showed in EuroLeague, he is a guy that could earn minutes in rotation, especially at a 4 spot where his competition is a lot younger and, as Steven said, a lot less polished. So I think in a season like the one we're seeing coming up where this team, we're not projecting them to be a surefire playoff team, I think you have to exhaust every option and see what every player on your roster can give you, because this is a guy that has worked his ass off for years against very good competition to get back to this stage, and he probably is not going to be willing to just let that go. Oh, I'm back. I made it. Now I can ease up. I don't think that's his mentality at all.
I do expect him to be in the rotation, but that's a very, very loose term. In the rotation could mean you're getting double-digit minutes a game. It could mean you're getting like 5 minutes a game, right? Just spot minutes here and there. I do expect him to see the court for the Suns, and I think those first month or two of games are really going to kind of determine where he'll end up carving out his role. But at the end of the day, like, being a culture guy is the most important thing for Nigel Hayes-Davis. And I think what fascinates me the most is that when you get Kaman, right? You get Nigel Hayes-Davis, you have Ryan Dunn and Oso, then you throw in a Dylan Brooks in there. And these are all guys that in their own separate way are cultural leaders. I do wonder if that's going to help you. I don't want to say get over the hump, but win some of these close games that you are maybe not supposed to win this year, and hence shock or surprise a lot of people in the NBA. Beyond that, though, what really fascinates me is that I look at him as somebody who can play in tandem with about every single player on this roster, right? From Devin Booker to Oso to Kaman to Dunn to Green. I don't really see a lineup where it's like, oh, I don't think there's room for Nigel Hayes-Davis there, at least in theory.
Yeah, especially if he's bringing those 3-and-D qualities and the IQ and the athleticism and all of those things that we've talked about. Absolutely. And you need as many of those players that are adaptable and you could plug into any lineup as possible, because we know that this roster is a little bit lopsided in terms of the front court, especially the center spot. We know that there's a lot of shooting guards, not a lot of point guards. You need to figure out where you're playing guys 3, 4, 2, etc. But if you can have supersized lineups where Nigel Hayes-Davis is a 3, or if you can go small with him at the 4, I don't think he'll be at the 5. But if you can go small with him at the 4 and the 3-point shooting holds up, suddenly you have a little bit more versatility than you did without him.
I'm imagining him for the same things that I talked about with Oso in Summer League, being able to play with bigs that can switch with him. I imagine if they're in lineups together and Oso is the proverbial 5, and then Nigel can be the proverbial 5 offensively if Oso's in grab-and-go situations and things like that. I think there's ways to kind of manipulate lineups and set an advantage. You want to play with more pace. You want to play with more activity defensively. Might not be more active than having Nigel Hayes-Davis and Oso Ighodaro in your front court. Now, how sustainable is that as far as the volume of minutes a lineup with those two in the front court could eat remains to be seen. But in theory, defensively and offensively, there's certainly some synergy that it feels like could fester between those two.
All right, let's play a game.
Okay,
let's play a little.
I don't know if I want to play a game with you.
All right, well, you can follow the show at PHNX underscore
What you gonna
Suns.
call
Guess
us
who's gonna end
nerds?
this
You
one
gonna call
5
us
minutes
nerds?
early?
What do you got
15
for us,
minutes?
Jigsaw?
You gonna call us nerds? Yeah.
Listen, man.
Huh.
Only nerds would get offended being called nerds. Anyway.
Okay.
I just don't want people having a misconception.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want people lying on my name.
I don't think do you okay, so let's unpack some things here, Steven.
You unpack-
Here's the game. Why is being a nerd a bad thing?
It's the context in which you said it. So.
Right. It's the connotation of it.
You said take that for data and the most
Mm-hmm.
vile, emphatic nerd I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a nerd.
It's a lie.
See, no, you're
See,
not.
you didn't even say it with the same tone.
I'm a nerd.
Everyone's a nerd about certain things, but when you call someone else a
man.
nerd,
What are
you
you
are
talking about?
projecting something onto them. Steven's not a nerd. He's just smart. There is a difference.
It's fair. Nerd.
Me, I don't
This
mind being
guy.
called a nerd because I nerd out over all my stuff. But
Who would have
Gerald's
thought?
not a nerd either, though.
Who would have thought? Gerald's definitely a nerd. Who would have thought?
No,
I'm a nerdy jock for
I've
sure.
seen nerds. I've seen nerds.
No, that's the thing. Is like there are layers. There are layers to nerds. There's
This
so many
man.
different
I
types of
contain
nerds.
This
multitudes.
man.
Yeah, like just because I call you a nerd doesn't mean you're only a nerd. I'm not putting you in a box. You know.
Sure.
This is the coddling moment after bullying to suppress the blow. I'm not falling.
Hey,
for
listen.
none
I
of
guess
it.
when you get bullied enough, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
That is not how the saying goes
Stupid.
at all.
I'm pretty sure. Of course, the nerd would correct me on that.
Correct, exactly.
Oh my god.
No, I listen. I think being a nerd's a great thing.
Okay.
I do. I love being a nerd.
So what's your game, dummy?
See, that's the thing is like in ASU, my nickname is the stupidest guy alive.
I don't know if that's a nickname or just an
No, it's an
outright
nickname.
put down.
You know, it's a nickname. That's the thing is like you guys get offended by nerd. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that of all the nicknames that I've given Steven, including cutesy legs,
I ain't like none of them. First of all,
but like
So
nerd is the one.
Let's keep it
Nerd
straight.
is the one that gets you the most.
Because
For
somebody
sure.
rewind the tape on the whole QC legs thing, man. You better stop it. You better
See,
stop
QT
it.
legs made you like shut down. Like
Uh-huh.
you were like, nah, I'm not. But like you are the most vocally outspoken. I guess you can't be like, I do not have cute legs. You know, you're like, nah, I'm not a nerd.
This man.
So listen, you brought this upon yourself by saying you don't
We
want to
gonna
play my
this
game.
or we gonna get to overtime?
I don't know. Are we gonna
We
play the
going to
game,
overtime
Steven?
now.
Can we play the game?
No overtime
going
on a
to
Friday.
overtime.
We got a 3-day weekend. Let's play the game, Jigsaw.
I don't even want to play the game anymore.
Well, you tell it to me, and
You
I'll set the game up.
bullies. We're gonna play an over/under game.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm gonna give you an over/under, and you're gonna say over/under. Cool. Everybody following me? You dumb jocks. Cool. Okay.
Not that either. Try again, sir.
Pick a lane. Over/under 42 games played for Nigel Hayes-Davis.
42.
42 games played where he logs minutes. That's over half the games. Over/under.
I'll do over.
That's over for me.
Okay. In those
No,
games.
what about you?
I'll take an over.
Okay.
You sure?
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna take the under on everything. Use this as motivation, Nigel.
I can tell
Oh,
from
wow.
earlier this week.
Bro, you're acting like I said that he was just dog water, hot garbage.
No,
I've
I didn't say
never
all
said
that.
that.
I didn't say all that. I'm just saying.
Anyway,
We just said out
in
of the
those
three of
games,
us.
in those games, over under
Debbie Downer.
8.5 minutes per game. That was close. That was a good one.
8.5.
8.5 minutes per game in over 42 games played.
Steven, I'll defer to you on this one.
I think he gets there. Might not be there early on, but maybe he earns it after getting his first stretch of opportunity across maybe a few games, and then sustains it from there.
I'm going to say over, and the reason I'm saying over is because just looking at the numbers from last season, only 4 guys failed to hit that threshold, and they were Damian Lee, Ty, Jalen Bridges, and Vasa Micic. So I think 8.5 is very doable, if he is, especially if he's playing over 42 games.
Over under 5 points per game in those 8 minutes plus.
I'm going to say over. You said
It's
6.5?
5.5.
5.5. I'll take the over.
It's over for me too.
I'm going to take the under, but they're going to be an effective 5 points. I think there's going to be a lot of mouths to feed on this team.
An effective.
I think defense, and maybe 1 or 2 threes per game is going to be where his calling card is. But what do you think? Over, under, starter, bench player, buried on the bench, whatever it might be. Let us know down in the comments below. Do you think we're jocks? Do you think we're nerds? Do you think we're somewhere in between? You let us know in the comments below. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Help PHNX Sports get to 50,000 subscribers. We want to get there soon, but of course, we're going to continue to bring you coverage 5 days a week, except for next week. We are off for Labor Day, so it will be 4 days out of the week, which means it's going to be a Tuesday mailbag edition of PHNX Suns. But don't worry, we still have tons of coverage coming your way. We've got film breakdowns, trending pods, everything possibly imaginable for Suns, plus all the other beats as well. Cardinal season starting up soon. ASU and U of A season starting tomorrow. You can check out Totri and I and where I'm called the stupidest guy alive tomorrow for the postgame show on NAU. Merc season in full swing with Steven with a co-host who doesn't bully him. How fun is that? And our camera died, so I'm going to say goodbye. You can follow us at PHNX_Suns on Twitter and on Instagram. You can follow the Freckled Mamba, a.k.a. Old Mangled Toes, at Freckled Mamba, letting the camera die per usual. Just kidding. It's the first time. You can follow Steven. Let's get the one shot on Steven. You can follow Steven at StevenPG3. That's Steven with a PH, because that nerd and jock, well, he balances us out.
He attempts to balance us out.
He tries. You can follow Gerald
us?
at Gerald Bourget. You can follow me at ERIKRUBY. It's kind of funny when the bulliers get bullied, how they react.
This guy.
We all silly like the mayor.